The elevator doors opened to reveal Austin Blackwell III storming toward my IT desk, clutching his laptop like a weapon. His designer shoes clicked against the marble floor of Blackwell Financial headquarters as employees scattered from his path.
"Fix my laptop, nerd!"
he bellowed, slamming the MacBook onto my workstation so hard my coffee mug jumped. I looked up at the 26-year-old heir to a billion-dollar fortune, his face red with entitlement, completely unaware that his father had just given me permission to destroy his privileged world with a single keystroke. My name is Bria, and I've been the senior IT security analyst at Blackwell Financial for 3 years now. After graduating from MIT with my cybersecurity degree, I thought I'd landed the perfect job at one of Chicago's most prestigious investment firms. The 60-floor glass tower downtown, the state-of-the-art technology, the impressive salary, everything seemed like a dream come true for a girl from Detroit who'd worked her way through college waiting tables. What I didn't expect was Austin Blackwell III. From my first day, Austin made it clear that he viewed the staff as his personal servants. The spoiled heir would swagger through the office in his $3,000 suits, barking orders and treating everyone like they were beneath him. But Austin wasn't just rude. He was dangerous. I'd witnessed him access confidential client information for his personal cryptocurrency trading schemes. He'd use company computers to research investments for his private portfolio, stealing proprietary trading algorithms our analysts spent months developing. When anyone questioned his behavior, he'd remind them exactly who signed their paychecks: Sarah Martinez. His 24-year-old assistant bore the worst of his abuse. I'd watched her flinch whenever his voice echoed across the office, her hands trembling as she brought him coffee that was never the right temperature. Austin would berate her in front of clients, calling her incompetent and threatening to ruin her career references if she didn't meet his impossible demands.
"Sarah, you worthless waste of space!"
Austin had screamed just last week.
"I asked for my father's Tokyo contacts 10 minutes ago. Are you too stupid to work a phone?"
Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but she couldn't respond. Her student loans from Northwestern were crushing her, and losing this job would mean moving back to her parents' small apartment in Milwaukee. Tom Richardson, our head of security, had been intimidated into complete silence. The former Marine had tried to report Austin's policy violations early on, but Austin had threatened to have him arrested for harassment of a company executive. Tom's daughter needed expensive medical treatments for her chronic illness, and he couldn't risk losing his health insurance. Janet Phillips, the HR director, faced the same impossible situation. She'd documented dozens of complaints against Austin over the years: sexual harassment, verbal abuse, theft of company resources. But every time she tried to escalate the issues, Austin would threaten her job. At 58 years old, with retirement just 7 years away, Janet couldn't afford to start over somewhere else. I'd meticulously documented everything in encrypted files on my personal drives. Austin's embezzlement, his harassment of female employees, his theft of proprietary information. I had digital evidence of crimes that could send him to federal prison. But what good was evidence when the perpetrator was untouchable? That Tuesday morning, as Austin slammed his laptop onto my desk, I noticed something different. His usual arrogant smirk was replaced by genuine frustration. The laptop screen flickered with error messages, and I could see multiple applications running simultaneously: trading platforms, encrypted messaging apps, and what appeared to be offshore banking interfaces.
"This piece of garbage froze up during an important transaction."
Austin snarled, his breath reeking of expensive whiskey despite it being only 10 in the morning.
"I need those cryptocurrency transfers completed before the markets close in Hong Kong."
As I opened the laptop to diagnose the issue, my blood ran cold. Austin had forgotten to close several browser windows containing encrypted files, detailed records of his embezzlement scheme. Bank routing numbers, client account access codes, and transfer receipts totaling over $2 million in stolen funds were displayed across multiple tabs. The laptop contained his entire criminal operation laid bare like a confession letter. Austin had been systematically siphoning money from elderly clients' retirement accounts, using his administrative access to cover his tracks by adjusting portfolio statements. The offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands showed regular deposits matching the missing funds from client portfolios. But what made my hands shake with rage wasn't just the theft. It was seeing the names of the victims, Mrs. Eleanor Watson, an 83-year-old widow whose husband had trusted Blackwell Financial with their life savings. Dr. James Park, a retired teacher whose pension fund had been gutted to finance Austin's gambling debts. Dozens of hardworking Americans who'd saved their entire lives now facing poverty because of one man's greed. My heart pounded as I realized I was holding evidence of federal crimes that could destroy countless lives. But Austin's next words made my decision crystal clear.
"And Bria,"
he said, leaning close enough that I could smell his cologne mixed with alcohol.
"if you mention anything you see on that laptop to anyone, I'll make sure you never work in tech again. I have connections at every major firm in this city. Cross me and you'll be fixing computers at some strip mall for minimum wage."
The threat hung in the air like poison. But as I stared at the evidence of his crimes, I realized something had fundamentally changed. For 3 years, I'd felt powerless against Austin's tyranny, but now sitting before me was proof of his vulnerability. Criminals always make mistakes, and Austin's arrogance had finally caught up with him. The decision to approach Robert Blackwell Sr. wasn't easy. The company founder was an imposing figure in his 70s, known for building his empire through ruthless business tactics and absolute loyalty to family. But as I stared at the evidence of Austin's crimes, I realized I had no choice. I requested an emergency meeting under the pretense of a critical security breach requiring immediate executive attention. Robert's secretary, Mrs. Davidson, initially tried to schedule something for the following month, but the urgency in my voice convinced her to squeeze me in that afternoon. Robert's corner office occupied the entire 60th floor with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. Persian rugs covered polished hardwood floors, and original oil paintings depicted American industrial scenes. Behind an enormous mahogany desk sat the man who'd built Blackwell Financial from a single-room operation into a billion-dollar empire.
"Miss Thompson,"
Robert said, his voice carrying the authority of decades in finance.
"Mrs. Davidson mentioned you've discovered a security concern. I trust this isn't about password policies or software updates."
My mouth went dry as I approached his desk.
"Mr. Blackwell, what I've found goes far beyond standard security issues. Your son has been using company systems to embezzle client funds."
The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Robert's weathered face showed no emotion as he leaned back in his leather chair, studying me with the same intensity he probably used to evaluate million-dollar investments. "Show me," he said simply. I placed Austin's laptop on his desk and walked him through the evidence. Bank statements, transfer records, encrypted communications with offshore financial institutions, everything needed to build a federal case. I expected shock denial or anger. Instead, Robert's reaction floored me completely.
"I've suspected as much for months,"
he said quietly, his voice heavy with exhaustion.
"Federal investigators approached me 6 weeks ago with preliminary evidence of irregularities in our client accounts. They've been building a case, but they needed proof of Austin's direct involvement."
The revelation hit me like a physical blow.
"You've known..."
Robert stood and walked to his windows, gazing out at the city he'd helped build.
"Suspecting and knowing are different things, Miss Thompson. I hoped my suspicions were wrong. I hoped my son hadn't become the monster I feared he was becoming."
He turned back to face me, and for the first time I saw not the powerful executive, but a broken father. Austin's trust fund contains $50 million that legally becomes his on his 27th birthday next month. Once he has access to those funds, he'll disappear probably to a country without extradition treaties. The stolen client money will be a rounding error compared to what he could take with him. My mind raced as I processed the implications. Can't you just change the terms of the trust? The legal framework was established when Austin was born with ironclad provisions to prevent exactly that kind of interference. His grandfather insisted on those protections to ensure the family wealth would pass to future generations regardless of business disputes or personal conflicts. Robert returned to his desk and opened a secure drawer, withdrawing a folder marked with federal classification stamps. However, the trust fund management system has security protocols that can be activated in cases of criminal activity. As the primary account administrator, I have the authority to revoke access if the beneficiary is deemed a security risk. He slid the folder across his desk toward me. The federal investigators have provided me with administrative credentials to the trust fund platform. They want to see if Austin will attempt to accelerate his access to the funds once he realizes he's under investigation. I stared at the folder, understanding the weight of what he was offering. You want me to revoke his access? I want you to conduct a character test, Robert said, his voice becoming steel-hard with resolve. Austin has never faced real consequences for his actions. He's never been held accountable by someone he couldn't intimidate or buy off. If he treats you with the same cruelty and contempt he's shown everyone else, you'll have my authorization to cut off his financial lifeline. Robert opened his laptop and accessed a secure portal that required biometric scanning and multiple authentication factors. The trust fund platform can be accessed remotely through our security network. If Austin demonstrates that he's truly beyond redemption, if he shows no capacity for basic human decency, then you have 48 hours to prevent him from accessing funds that will allow him to escape justice. The implications were staggering. I wouldn't just be fighting back against a workplace bully. I'd be serving justice for dozens of elderly victims who'd been robbed of their life savings. But the responsibility was overwhelming. Mr. Blackwell, I said carefully, what if I'm wrong? What if he's changed? Robert's laugh was bitter and hollow. Miss Thompson, I've spent 26 years hoping my son would change. I've given him every opportunity, every advantage, every chance to become a decent human being. Tomorrow you'll see the real Austin Blackwell III. And if he's the man I fear he's become, then you'll have the power to ensure justice is served. He handed me a secure tablet containing the administrative credentials and detailed instructions for accessing the trust fund management system. Consider this your final examination in cybersecurity ethics. The question isn't whether you have the technical ability to revoke his access. The question is whether you have the moral courage to do what's right when someone's entire future hangs in the balance. As I left Robert's office, the tablet felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I had the power to destroy someone's life with a few keystrokes. But as I thought about Mrs. Eleanor Watson and Dr. James Park, about Sarah Martinez and Tom Richardson, about every person Austin had hurt with his cruelty and greed, I knew exactly what I had to do. The test wasn't really for Austin. It was for me. And I was determined not to fail. That evening, I sat in my studio apartment overlooking the Chicago River, studying the administrative credentials Robert had given me. The trust fund management platform was more sophisticated than I'd expected, requiring multiple layers of authentication and irreversible command confirmations. Once I initiated the revocation process, there would be no going back. The technical requirements were complex but straightforward. The system required biometric verification from the primary administrator, Robert's secondary authorization from a designated security officer, me, and a 48-hour waiting period before the revocation became permanent.
Austin would receive automated notifications about the security review, but by then it would be too late to stop the process. As I reviewed the documentation, my mind wandered to my own background. Growing up in Detroit, I'd watched my father work double shifts at the Ford plant to keep our family afloat. My mother cleaned office buildings at night to save money for my college fund. They'd sacrificed everything to give me opportunities they'd never had, teaching me that hard work and integrity were the only paths to real success. The contrast with Austin's life couldn't have been starker. While I'd studied for 18 hours a day to earn my scholarship to MIT, Austin had partied his way through Harvard, knowing his trust fund would catch him regardless of his grades or behavior. While I'd built my career through competence and dedication, Austin had leveraged his family name to bypass every qualification and ethical standard. But now, for the first time in his privileged life, Austin was about to face real consequences. The next morning, I arrived at the office early to observe Austin's behavior without the pressure of our upcoming confrontation. What I witnessed over the following hours solidified my resolve completely. At 9:15, Austin made Sarah Martinez cry by screaming at her for bringing him regular coffee instead of his preferred Ethiopian blend.
Do I need to hire someone with an actual brain, or are you going to figure out basic instructions?
He roared across the office loud enough for the entire trading floor to hear. At 10:30, he cornered Lisa Chen, a 22-year-old junior analyst, pressing her against the copy machine while making crude comments about her appearance. "You know, Lisa, I could really help your career advancement if you were a little more friendly." Lisa's face went white with terror as she tried to escape his advances. At 11:45, Austin confronted Tom Richardson about implementing new security protocols that would restrict his access to employee personal information.
"Listen, military boy,"
Austin snarled.
"I don't care about your little rules. I own this company and I'll access whatever files I want. Try to stop me and I'll have you arrested for insubordination."
But the breaking point came at 12:30 when Austin discovered that Janet Phillips had documented his harassment of Lisa Chen in an official HR report. He stormed into Janet's office, slamming the door so hard the glass rattled throughout the building. "You pathetic old witch!" Austin's voice carried through the thin walls.
"How dare you question my authority? I could have you fired and blacklisted from every company in Chicago. Your retirement fund could disappear with one phone call. Is that really how you want to spend your golden years?" I watched Janet's face through her office window as Austin continued his tirade. The woman who'd dedicated 30 years to protecting employee rights was being terrorized by a spoiled child who'd never earned anything in his life. That afternoon, I made a discovery that removed any remaining doubts about Austin's character. Using my administrative access to investigate suspicious network activity, I found that Austin had been using his laptop to access the company's employee database, downloading personal information about dozens of staff members. The files contained everything: social security numbers, home addresses, family information, medical records, financial data. Everything needed to destroy someone's life. Austin had been building a comprehensive blackmail operation using stolen personal information to intimidate employees into silence about his criminal activities. In an encrypted folder labeled Insurance Policies, I found detailed profiles of anyone who might pose a threat to his operation. My own file was there, containing information about my student loans, my parents' financial struggles, and my professional references. Austin had been preparing to destroy my career and my family's security if I ever crossed him. But more disturbing were the files containing threats against other employees. Austin had researched Tom Richardson's daughter's medical condition, planning to threaten her health care if Tom reported his policy violations. He'd discovered that Sarah Martinez's younger brother was undocumented, preparing to call immigration authorities if she ever quit or filed complaints.
He'd found evidence of Janet Phillips's husband's DUI from 15 years ago, planning to use it to destroy her reputation in their small suburban community. Austin Blackwell III wasn't just a bully or a thief. He was a sociopath who enjoyed inflicting suffering on innocent people. Every person who'd ever trusted him worked for him, or simply existed in his presence, was a potential victim in his twisted game of psychological warfare. As I stared at the evidence of his comprehensive cruelty, I realized that tomorrow's confrontation wasn't just about justice for his financial crimes. It was about protecting every current and future victim of his narcissistic rage. The trust fund revocation wouldn't just prevent him from escaping with stolen money. It would strip away the financial power he used to terrorize innocent people. I spent that evening preparing for the confrontation with the methodical precision my MIT professors had drilled into me. I verified backup systems, confirmed authentication protocols, and rehearsed every keystroke needed to execute the revocation command. By midnight, I was ready to deliver justice with the same technological precision Austin had used to commit his crimes. Tomorrow, Austin Blackwell III would finally learn that actions have consequences and some prices can't be paid with inherited money. Wednesday morning arrived with the kind of gray Chicago weather that matched my grim determination. I arrived at the office an hour early, using the time to run final system checks and mentally prepare for what was coming. The trust fund platform was active and ready, requiring only my command sequence to begin the irreversible revocation process. Austin arrived at 9:20, already agitated about something that had happened during his commute. His Maserati had apparently been damaged by construction debris, and he was furious about the inconvenience of dealing with insurance claims. The minor setback had amplified his usual morning hostility into something approaching volcanic rage.
"Where's my laptop report, computer girl?" Austin demanded, storming over to my workstation without any greeting or pretense of civility. "I need those cryptocurrency transfers completed before Hong Kong closes, and if your incompetence costs me money, I'll hold you personally responsible." I looked up from my computer, meeting his bloodshot eyes with steady calm. "I've been running diagnostic tests on your system, Mr. Blackwell. There are some security concerns that need to be addressed before I can return the laptop." Austin's face flushed crimson. "Security concerns? What kind of idiotic bureaucratic nonsense are you spewing now? Just fix the damn thing and stop wasting my time with technical garbage I don't care about." Around the office, conversations stopped as employees sensed the rising tension. Sarah Martinez looked up from her desk with obvious anxiety, while Tom Richardson positioned himself within earshot of our conversation. The entire trading floor was holding its breath, waiting to see how this confrontation would unfold. The diagnostic revealed some unusual network activity. I continued, keeping my voice professional and measured. "Company policy requires a security review before I can return any device that's been compromised." Austin leaned across at my desk, invading my personal space with predatory aggression. "Listen carefully, you pathetic little techie. I don't care about your policies or your security reviews or whatever other excuses you're making. I want my laptop working perfectly in the next 5 minutes, or I'll make sure you're unemployed by lunchtime." The threat was delivered loud enough for half the office to hear, and I could see other employees wincing at Austin's cruelty. This was exactly what Robert had warned me about. Austin's complete inability to treat other human beings with basic dignity or respect. "Furthermore," Austin continued, his voice rising to a near shout, "don't think I don't know about your little middle-class background and your precious MIT degree. You're nothing but a glorified computer repair technician who got lucky with scholarships and affirmative action programs. Without this job, you'd be back in whatever Detroit ghetto you crawled out of." The personal attack hit exactly as Austin intended, but instead of intimidating me, it strengthened my resolve. Every word confirmed what Robert had told me about his son's character, or complete lack thereof. I need another few minutes to complete the security protocols, I said, pulling the laptop closer to my workstation. Company regulations are quite specific about potential security breaches. Austin exploded. Security breach, you ignorant little girl! I am the security! I own this company! I own you! When I tell you to jump, your only response should be asking how high. When I tell you to fix something, you fix it immediately without question or hesitation. His tirade attracted attention from across the entire floor. Senior executives emerged from their offices to see what was causing the commotion while junior employees pretended to work while secretly watching the confrontation unfold. "Do you have any idea who I am?" Austin screamed, spit flying from his mouth as his rage escalated beyond any pretense of self-control. My family built this company from nothing. Every paycheck you've ever received came from my family's generosity. Every opportunity you've ever had exists because people like me create wealth for people like you to leech off of. I opened the laptop and began typing, accessing the trust fund management platform with deliberate slowness. Austin was too consumed with his own fury to notice what I was actually doing, continuing his verbal assault with increasing viciousness. "And another thing, princess," Austin snarled. "Don't think your little computer skills make you special. Any high school dropout can click buttons and follow instructions. You're completely replaceable, and once I inherit my trust fund next month, I'm going to clean house of every ungrateful employee who's ever questioned my authority." The mention of his trust fund sent chills through the watching employees who'd all heard rumors about Austin's upcoming inheritance and his threats to fire most of the staff. But Austin was just getting started with his threats. "You know what I'm going to do after my birthday?" Austin asked, his voice carrying clearly across the silent office. "I'm going to fire half this company and blacklist them from every financial firm in Chicago, starting with you, computer girl, and that pathetic assistant Sarah, and that useless security guard Tom. None of you deserve the air you breathe, let alone the salaries my family pays you." Sarah Martinez's face went pale at the direct threat, while Tom Richardson's jaw tightened with barely controlled anger. Around the office, I could see the faces of hardworking people who dedicated years of their lives to building Blackwell Financial, only to be threatened with destruction by someone who'd never earned anything. Austin wasn't finished. "And Janet Phillips thinks she can document complaints against me. I've got dirt on every single employee in this building. Personal information, financial records, family secrets. Everything I need to destroy anyone who crosses me. Try to oppose me and I'll ruin your lives so thoroughly you'll wish you'd never been born." The confession of his blackmail operation was delivered as a boast, confirming everything I'd discovered in his laptop files. Austin was publicly admitting to criminal activity witnessed by dozens of employees who could testify to his threats and extortion attempts, but his final words sealed his fate completely. "So fix my damn laptop right now, or I'll make sure you and everyone you care about pays the price for your insubordination. I have the power to destroy careers, ruin reputations, and crush anyone stupid enough to challenge me. Your parents' financial security, your future employment prospects, your entire pathetic existence. All of it depends on keeping me happy." As Austin's threats echoed across the silent office, I completed entering the administrative credentials into the trust fund platform. The system requested final confirmation for the revocation process, warning that the action would be irreversible once initiated. I looked up at Austin's rage-twisted face, thinking about Mrs. Eleanor Watson and Dr. James Park, about Sarah Martinez and Tom Richardson, about every person he'd hurt and every person he planned to destroy. Then I thought about the scared little girl from Detroit who'd worked her way through MIT, who'd promised herself she'd use her skills to make the world a better place. My finger hovered over the enter key as Austin continued his tirade, completely oblivious to the fact that his privileged world was about to end forever. The moment had arrived. Austin stood before my desk,
his face contorted with rage, completely unaware that his next few seconds would determine whether he remained a powerful heir or became just another criminal facing justice. The entire office watched in tense silence as I positioned my fingers over the keyboard.
"I'm warning you one last time, you pathetic little—"
Austin began, but I cut him off with a calm, steady voice. "Mr. Blackwell, I need to inform you that your laptop has encountered a critical security failure." Austin's eyes narrowed dangerously.
"What kind of failure? Stop speaking in riddles and tell me exactly what's wrong."
I pressed the enter key. The trust fund management system processed my command, instantly executing the revocation sequence with digital precision. $50 million in inherited wealth vanished from Austin's future with the same ease as deleting a file. The laptop screen went completely black as the system confirmed the irreversible action.
"What did you just do?"
Austin demanded, noticing the black screen for the first time.
"Why is my laptop not working? What's wrong with it?"
Around the office, conversations had stopped entirely. Senior executives, junior analysts, administrative staff. Everyone was watching as the confrontation reached its climax. Sarah Martinez had her hand pressed to her mouth in anticipation, while Tom Richardson stood at attention like he was witnessing a military operation.
"Hey!"
Austin shouted, his voice cracking with the first hint of panic.
"The screen went black. What did you do to my computer? Fix it right now."
I leaned back in my chair and looked directly into Austin's eyes, speaking with the calm authority of someone who just delivered perfect justice.
"I didn't fix your laptop, Mr. Blackwell."
Austin's face showed confusion mixed with growing alarm.
"What do you mean you didn't fix it? That's your job. That's what I told you to do. I remotely revoked your trust fund access."
The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Austin's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to dawning horror as the implications began to sink in.
"Your father asked me to test your character."
I continued, my voice carrying across the dead-silent office.
"You failed."
Austin's mouth opened and closed soundlessly like a fish gasping for air. The color drained from his face as he processed what I'd just told him. Around the office, I could hear sharp intakes of breath as employees realized they were witnessing Austin's complete destruction.
That's impossible."
Austin stammered, his usual arrogant confidence crumbling before our eyes.
"You can't access my trust fund. You're just some IT worker. You don't have that kind of authority."
I turned the laptop around so he could see the trust fund management platform displaying the completed revocation order. Austin's name appeared in red letters next to the word revoked, along with a timestamp showing the exact moment his inheritance had been permanently canceled. "Your father provided me with full administrative credentials," I explained calmly. "He wanted to see if you were capable of treating another human being with basic respect and dignity. Based on your behavior over the past 15 minutes, he has his answer." Austin lunged for the laptop, desperately trying to reverse what had happened.
"Undo it! Change it back! You can't do this to me! That money is mine!"
I gently closed the laptop, preventing him from accessing the system.
"The revocation process is irreversible once initiated. Your trust fund has been permanently transferred to a federal account pending the resolution of criminal charges against you."
The mention of criminal charges sent Austin into complete panic. He spun around wildly, looking for someone who might help him, but every face in the office showed either satisfaction or carefully concealed joy at his downfall.
"This is illegal!"
Austin screamed, his voice becoming shrill with desperation.
"You can't steal my inheritance!
I'll have you arrested. I'll sue you for everything you're worth."
"Actually,"
came a calm voice from across the office,
"Miss Thompson's actions were completely authorized."
Everyone turned to see Robert Blackwell Sr. emerging from the elevator, flanked by 2 federal agents wearing dark suits and serious expressions. Austin's face went completely white as he realized his father had been planning this confrontation all along.
"Dad,"
Austin whispered, his voice small and broken.
"What are you doing here? Why are there federal agents with you?
Robert walked slowly across the office, his expression carrying the weight of decades of disappointment and regret.
Austin, meet Special Agents Martinez and Johnson from the FBI Financial Crimes Division. They've been investigating your embezzlement activities for the past 6 weeks.
Agent Martinez stepped forward, producing a badge and official documentation.
Austin Blackwell III, you're under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes. You have the right to remain silent.
As the Miranda rights were read, Austin's knees buckled and he had to grab my desk for support. The reality of his situation was finally penetrating his narcissistic delusion of invincibility.
The trust fund revocation was conducted with full federal oversight, Robert explained to the watching employees. Ms. Thompson's actions prevented Austin from accessing funds that would have allowed him to flee the country and escape prosecution.
Austin looked around the office, desperately searching for sympathy or support from the people he'd tormented for years. Instead, he found Sarah Martinez standing tall with tears of relief in her eyes, Tom Richardson watching with grim satisfaction, and Janet Phillips taking detailed notes for what would undoubtedly become a comprehensive HR report.
"Please,"
Austin begged, his voice breaking completely. "Dad, please don't let them arrest me. I'll change. I'll be better. I'll pay back the money." Robert's expression remained stone cold.
"Austin, you had 26 years to change. You had every advantage, every opportunity, every chance to become a decent human being. Instead, you chose to become a criminal and a bully."
Agent Johnson finished reading the Miranda rights and began placing handcuffs on Austin's wrists.
"Mr. Blackwell, the evidence against you is overwhelming. We recommend you contact an attorney immediately."
As Austin was led away in handcuffs, he turned back toward me with a look of pure hatred.
"This isn't over," he screamed. "I'll find a way to destroy you. I'll make you pay for this."
But his threats rang hollow. Without his trust fund, without his father's protection, without his position at the company, Austin Blackwell III was just another white-collar criminal facing the consequences of his actions. The elevator doors closed on Austin's privileged life forever, and for the first time in years, the Blackwell financial office felt like a place where decent people could work without fear. The immediate aftermath of Austin's arrest transformed the office atmosphere so dramatically it felt like stepping into an entirely different company. Within minutes of the elevator doors closing on Austin's handcuffed figure, conversations erupted across the trading floor as employees processed what they'd just witnessed. Sarah Martinez was the first to approach my desk, her hands shaking with a combination of relief and disbelief.
"Bria,"
she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Did that really just happen? Is Austin actually gone?" Before I could answer, Tom Richardson joined us, his military bearing more confident than I'd seen it in years.
"Miss Thompson, I want you to know that what you did today took incredible courage. That man has terrorized this office for far too long." Within an hour, the news had spread throughout the entire building.
Austin's corporate credit cards were declined when he tried to post bail from the federal detention center. His company access badges were deactivated, his office was sealed by federal investigators, and his authority over company operations evaporated like morning fog. The transformation in employee behavior was remarkable to witness. People who'd spent years walking on eggshells suddenly stood straighter, spoke louder, and smiled more freely. The oppressive atmosphere of fear that had hung over Blackwell Financial for so long was lifting with each passing hour. Janet Phillips emerged from her office carrying a thick folder of documentation.
"Bria, I need you to know that I've been forced to suppress dozens of complaints against Austin over the years. With his arrest, I can finally file proper reports with the appropriate authorities. Your actions today have given voice to every employee he's silenced through intimidation."
The legal consequences for Austin unfolded with stunning speed.
The FBI's Financial Crimes Division had been building their case for months, and Austin's laptop provided the final pieces of evidence needed for federal prosecution. By Thursday morning, investigators had traced his embezzlement network to include accomplices at 3 other financial firms. The stolen funds were recovered from Austin's offshore accounts within 72 hours, thanks to international cooperation agreements and the detailed transaction records I'd helped uncover. Mrs. Eleanor Watson and Dr. James Park were among the first victims contacted by federal agents, who informed them that their stolen retirement funds would be fully restored with interest. Robert Blackwell Sr. called an all-hands meeting on Thursday afternoon, addressing the entire company from the main conference room. His speech was broadcast to all 60 floors of the building, reaching every employee who'd been affected by Austin's reign of terror. "I stand before you today to acknowledge my failures as a father and as a leader," Robert began, his voice heavy with genuine remorse. "I enabled my son's destructive behavior for far too long, allowing him to create a culture of fear and intimidation in this company. That ends today." Robert announced immediate policy changes designed to prevent future abuse. A new ethics hotline would allow anonymous reporting of misconduct, with investigations handled by external auditors rather than internal staff. Employee protection protocols would shield whistleblowers from retaliation, and comprehensive diversity and inclusion training would be mandatory for all management positions. "Furthermore," Robert continued, "I'm promoting Sarah Martinez to Director of Administrative Operations. Tom Richardson to Chief Security Officer, and Janet Phillips will oversee the creation of our new Employee Advocacy Department." The promotions drew applause throughout the building, but Robert's next announcement was even more significant. "Bria Thompson will become our new Chief Information Security Officer, with full authority to implement whatever cybersecurity measures are necessary to protect our clients and our employees from future threats." The promotion came with a salary increase that tripled my previous compensation, along with stock options and a corner office on the 58th floor. But more important than the financial benefits was the authority to use my skills to protect people rather than simply maintain computer systems. Over the following weeks, I learned the full scope of Austin's criminal enterprise. The FBI investigation revealed that he'd been part of a larger white-collar crime ring spanning multiple cities, using his family's reputation to facilitate money laundering operations for international fraudsters. His arrest triggered a federal investigation that ultimately brought down an entire network of financial criminals. Austin's co-conspirators included executives at investment firms in New York, Los Angeles, and Miami, all of whom had been using their positions to steal from client accounts and funnel money through offshore shell companies. The total amount stolen exceeded $20 million, affecting hundreds of victims across the country. But perhaps the most satisfying discovery was that Austin's own arrogance had provided most of the evidence needed to convict him. His detailed records, his threatening messages to employees, and his boastful communications with criminal associates created an overwhelming case that made plea negotiations impossible. The company culture transformation was equally remarkable. Sarah Martinez thrived in her new leadership role, implementing efficiency improvements that streamlined operations and increased employee satisfaction. Her confidence grew daily as she realized she no longer had to fear Austin's unpredictable rages. Tom Richardson used his military experience to create comprehensive security protocols that protected both physical assets and employee safety. His daughter's medical treatments continued uninterrupted, and he expressed gratitude that he could finally do his job without fear of retaliation. Janet Phillips found new energy in her work as she processed the backlog of suppressed complaints and implemented systems to prevent future abuse. At 58 years old, she felt like she was finally able to use her decades of HR experience to create a genuinely supportive workplace. The Employee Assistance Fund, established using Austin's forfeited trust fund money, provided counseling services, legal aid, and financial support for any staff member who'd been affected by Austin's harassment or threats. The fund also established scholarships for employees' children, ensuring that Austin's former victims would benefit from the wealth he'd tried to use against them. As news of the scandal spread throughout Chicago's financial district, Blackwell Financial became known as a company that prioritized employee welfare and ethical business practices. Client confidence increased as investors recognized that the firm had taken decisive action to remove criminal elements and implement transparent oversight systems. The federal investigation revealed one final twist that vindicated everyone who'd stood up to Austin's abuse. His enemies list contained detailed plans for destroying the lives of more than 40 employees, including schemes to plant drugs in their cars, falsify criminal records, and sabotage their professional reputations. The discovery of these plans added conspiracy and criminal threats to his federal charges. Austin's downfall was complete, but the positive changes he'd inadvertently triggered were just beginning to transform Blackwell Financial into the kind of company where talent and character mattered more than family connections or inherited wealth. 6 months after Austin's arrest, his criminal trial concluded with a guilty verdict on all federal charges. The evidence against him was so overwhelming that his expensive legal team advised him to accept a plea agreement, but Austin's narcissism prevented him from admitting guilt, even when faced with irrefutable proof of his crimes. The trial itself became a media sensation, with financial news networks covering every detail of the embezzlement scheme and employee abuse that had characterized Austin's tenure at Blackwell Financial. Victims testified about the impact of his crimes, while former employees described the culture of fear he'd created through intimidation and threats. Austin received a 12-year federal prison sentence without possibility of parole, along with orders to pay full restitution to all victims. The $50 million trust fund that I'd revoked was permanently redistributed to create a victim compensation fund and employee assistance programs at companies across Chicago. But the legal resolution was only the beginning of the positive changes that rippled outward from that confrontation at my desk. Sarah Martinez used her promotion and newfound confidence to complete her MBA at Northwestern, graduating summa cum laude while maintaining her full-time responsibilities as Director of Administrative Operations. She later established a nonprofit organization providing career counseling and financial assistance to employees who'd experienced workplace harassment. Tom Richardson's transformation was equally remarkable. His military discipline combined with his newfound authority allowed him to create security protocols that became industry standards throughout Chicago's financial district. His daughter's medical condition stabilized under improved treatment coverage, and Tom began speaking at conferences about the importance of protecting whistleblowers and maintaining workplace integrity. Janet Phillips postponed her retirement to oversee the implementation of employee protection programs that exceeded federal requirements for workplace safety and harassment prevention. Her expertise in HR law helped establish new industry standards for documenting and addressing workplace abuse, and she received recognition from the National Association of Human Resources Professionals for her innovative approaches to employee advocacy. Robert Blackwell Sr. underwent his own process of reflection and growth following Austin's conviction. He established the Blackwell Foundation for Corporate Ethics, providing funding for business schools to develop curricula focused on ethical leadership and social responsibility. He also began mentoring other executives who were struggling with family members who'd abused their positions within family businesses. I spent 26 years enabling destructive behavior because I confused love with enabling, Robert told me during one of our quarterly reviews. Austin's arrest was devastating as a father, but necessary as a human being who cares about justice and protecting innocent people. The company transformation exceeded everyone's expectations. Employee satisfaction surveys showed dramatic improvements across every metric from job security to workplace culture to career advancement opportunities. Client retention increased as investors recognized Blackwell Financial's commitment to ethical operations and transparent oversight. My own career flourished in ways I'd never imagined possible. As Chief Information Security Officer, I implemented cybersecurity protocols that protected not just our company, but served as models for other financial firms. I began speaking at technology conferences about the intersection of cybersecurity and workplace ethics, sharing lessons learned from the Austin Blackwell case. The experience taught me that technical skills without moral courage are incomplete. I'd spent years documenting Austin's crimes, but feeling powerless to act. It wasn't until I realized that protecting others was more important than protecting myself that I found the strength to use my abilities for justice. 2 years after Austin's conviction, I received an unexpected phone call from Mrs. Eleanor Watson, the 83-year-old widow whose retirement funds Austin had stolen. Her voice was strong and clear as she thanked me for recovering her life savings and allowing her to maintain her independence. "Dear, I wanted you to know that your courage gave me back more than just money," she said. "You gave me back my dignity and my faith that good people still fight for what's right. That boy thought he could steal from old folks without consequences, but you proved him wrong." Dr. James Park sent a similar message explaining how the recovered funds had allowed him to avoid foreclosure on his home and maintain his dignity during retirement. "You gave an old teacher the most important lesson of all," he wrote. "Justice still exists when good people have the courage to demand it." The ripple effects continued expanding throughout Chicago's business community. Other companies began implementing similar employee protection protocols, inspired by the positive changes at Blackwell Financial. Industry associations developed new standards for background checks and ethics training, partly based on lessons learned from Austin's case. I also received letters from employees at other companies who'd found the courage to report abuse and misconduct after hearing about our experience. The Austin Blackwell case had become a symbol of how ordinary people could stand up to powerful abusers and create meaningful change. 5 years later, I'm proud to say that Blackwell Financial has become one of the most respected employers in Chicago's financial district. Our employee retention rates exceed industry averages, our client satisfaction scores are consistently high, and our ethical standards have become benchmarks for the entire industry. Sarah Martinez and I eventually launched our own consulting firm specializing in helping companies develop comprehensive employee protection and cybersecurity programs. We've worked with dozens of organizations to create cultures where talent and integrity matter more than connections or inherited privilege. The Austin Blackwell case taught me that justice isn't just about punishing wrongdoers. It's about creating systems that protect good people and reward ethical behavior. Sometimes the most important technical skill isn't knowing how to code or configure networks. It's knowing when to use those skills to defend others who can't defend themselves. Technology gives us incredible power to access information control systems and influence outcomes. But with that power comes the responsibility to ensure that our skills serve justice rather than merely convenience. Every keystroke can either protect someone vulnerable or enable someone powerful to cause harm. The day I revoked Austin's trust fund access wasn't just about stopping one criminal, it was about proving that bullies and abusers aren't invincible when good people have the courage to use their abilities for justice. Austin thought his wealth and family connections made him untouchable, but he learned that character and competence will always triumph over privilege and entitlement. Today, when young IT professionals ask me for career advice, I tell them that technical skills will get you hired, but moral courage will define your legacy. The most satisfying moments in your career won't come from solving complex problems or implementing sophisticated systems. They'll come from using your abilities to protect people who need protection and serve justice for those who've been wronged. Austin Blackwell III sits in federal prison today, stripped of his wealth, his authority, and his ability to hurt innocent people. Meanwhile, the employees he terrorized have built successful careers based on their own merit. The victims he robbed have recovered their stolen assets, and the company he tried to corrupt has become a model of ethical business practices. That's what real justice looks like. Not just punishment for wrongdoers, but transformation and healing for everyone they've harmed. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you had the power to stand up for others but felt afraid to act? Have you witnessed workplace abuse or seen someone use their position to hurt vulnerable people? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below about how we can all find the courage to do what's right, even when it feels scary or risky. Please like this video if you believe that standing up to bullies and abusers is worth the risk, and subscribe to my channel for more stories about justice, courage, and the power of ordinary people to create extraordinary change. Share this story with anyone who might need to hear that they have more power than they realize to protect others and fight for what's right. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the most important battles aren't fought with weapons or words, but with the quiet courage to use our skills and abilities to serve justice when it matters most. Stay strong, stay ethical, and never underestimate your power to change the world one keystroke at a time.